To reach your goals, you have to like put in this crazy amount of effort,
Yeah.
like constantly hustling 24/7 just to keep up.
Totally. It's like a
That
never-ending cycle.
it can be exhausting, right?
Absolutely.
Well, today we're going to dive into an article that actually challenges that whole idea.
Oh, interesting.
It's called Transforming Beliefs, Unlocking the Power of Asking in the Creative Process.
Okay.
And it basically says that maybe there's a simpler way to get what we want.
I like the sound of that. So what's the article's take on this?
So the big idea is, what if asking for what we want is actually way more powerful than we realize?
Okay.
And what if we're already doing it without even knowing?
That's fascinating. So how do we do that without knowing?
That's what we're going to uncover.
Yeah, how does that work?
So the article says that every time we feel this like sense of lack,
Yeah. Right.
or contrast, like, oh, I wish I had that instead of this.
We've all been there.
Right.
Yes.
That in itself is a form of asking.
Huh. Interesting. So we're not talking about like vision boards or anything.
Not like,
Okay.
not the tangible things that we think about when we think about asking. Right?
Yeah.
It's something deeper.
Okay.
It's more intrinsic. So the article talks about this idea of our inner being
Okay.
that's always aware of what we want,
Got it.
even when our conscious mind is like caught up in the day-to-day.
Right. So it's like this behind the scenes operator, always working,
Exactly.
picking up on our wants and needs. I like it.
Yeah. So how does that translate into actually getting what we want in like the real world?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we
Well,
bridge that gap?
Right. So the article uses this really cool analogy to explain how it works.
Oh, I love analogies. Lay it on me.
It talks about our physical self and our inner being working together as a team,
Okay.
like a dynamic team.
Okay. I like where this is going. Tell me more. How do they work together?
So imagine that your physical self is like the CEO of your life,
Okay.
making the decisions, taking the actions.
Right.
But behind the scenes, you've got this dedicated team
Uh-huh.
working tirelessly to support your vision.
Okay.
That's your inner being,
Gotcha.
always striving to align you with what you truly desire.
I like that. But how does this inner team, how do they know what we want? How do they get that download of information?
Well, think about it. You don't have to consciously remind yourself to breathe, right?
That's true.
Your body just does it.
Yeah, it just happens.
And your inner being operates in a similar way.
Okay.
It's constantly tuned into your deepest desires, even if you haven't like fully acknowledged them in your conscious mind.
So it's like our intuition on autopilot.
Yeah, it's like always kind of bubbling beneath the surface.
Yeah.
So these moments where we feel dissatisfied, where we're like, I want something more, that's our inner team sending up a flare.
A bat signal. Hey, pay attention. Something's not quite right over here.
Exactly. And that in itself is a form of asking.
Wow. Okay, so we're sending out these little SOS signals all the time
Yeah.
without even realizing it.
And the article argues that our inner being is picking up on them.
Okay. My mind is officially blown. So if we're constantly asking in this way, even without realizing it, how does that actually play out in our lives?
That is a great question. And that is what we're going to get into in just a moment.
Okay.
But first, a quick word from our sponsors. All right, so we're back. We're talking about asking as a creative force in our lives.
And how it's not always about like, verbally asking for what we want. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. It's about tapping into something more energetic, more vibrational.
Okay, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So the article gets into this whole idea of vibrational energy,
Okay.
this concept that everything around us, our thoughts, our desires,
Yeah.
even us,
Yeah.
exist as energy vibrating at different frequencies.
Frequencies. Okay. That sounds kind of heady. What does that even mean, vibrating at different frequencies?
I know, right? It sounds a little woo-woo at first.
It does.
But stick with me.
Okay.
Have you ever walked into a room and just felt this
Yeah.
instant vibe?
Totally. Like a good vibe or a weird vibe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you can just sense the energy.
Yeah, you just feel it,
That's us experiencing energy,
Okay.
even if we don't always consciously think about it that way.
Right. So it's like we're picking up on something real.
Exactly. So now imagine
Right.
that our desires, those deep-seated things we long for, they also emit a vibrational frequency.
Okay. Okay. So our desires are giving off a vibe too. I'm following.
They're putting it out there.
Yeah.
And the universe, it picks up on those vibes.
So it's like attracts like. If our desires are sending out good vibes, good things will be attracted to us.
Well, the article doesn't necessarily frame it as Good vibes versus bad vibes.
Okay.
It's more about alignment.
Alignment.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we feel those moments of dissatisfaction, like, ugh, I'm so over this job or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes, those I want something more feelings.
Right. Right. We're actually sending out a signal then.
Exactly. And our inner being is like, copy that. Message received.
So that yearning, that desire for something different, it's not just us complaining, it's actually part of the creative process.
It's like we're tuning our internal radio to a different station, one that's playing the music of our desires.
Okay, I'm liking this analogy, but how do we make sure we're tuned into the right station? How do we actually bring those desires into our reality?
Well, let's unpack that after a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of how this whole asking thing works.
Right, because we left off talking about how our desires actually have a vibrational frequency, right?
Yeah, and how even those, I'm so over this, feelings are like our inner being sending out a signal.
Exactly. But now the question becomes, how do we actually make sure we're attracting what we want, not what we don't want?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Because it's almost like we're putting in an order with the universe, but we want to make sure we get the order right.
Exactly. And this is where the article makes a really interesting point.
Okay, lay it on me.
So it basically says that if we're constantly focusing on the negative, like dwelling on our fears, our worries, what we don't want, we're actually sending out those low vibe ingredients, so to speak.
It's like accidentally ordering a pizza you hate.
Yeah.
Because you spent all day thinking about how much you didn't want anchovies on it.
Yeah, exactly. And the universe, it doesn't discriminate.
It's like one order of unwanted anchovies coming right up.
Right. So it's not necessarily about becoming these relentlessly positive thinkers who pretend everything is perfect.
Because that's not realistic.
Right. Exactly. It's more about becoming aware of those thought patterns.
Okay. So more mindfulness, less denial. I like it.
Exactly, because it's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending they don't exist. It's more about choosing where we focus our energy.
So it's less about toxic positivity and more about realizing we have a choice in how we respond to things.
You got it, because we have so much more power than we realize.
That's incredibly empowering when you think about it. Yeah. We're not just victims of circumstance. We have agency.
Exactly. And this whole conversation, this whole deep dive has been about recognizing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to recap for our listeners, if they're just tuning in or if they, like me, need a little refresher, what are the big takeaways from transforming beliefs, unlocking the power of asking in the creative process?
Well, first and foremost, I think it really challenges us to rethink how we approach achieving our goals.
Okay.
It's not always about this hustle harder, push harder mentality.
Right, because sometimes it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about tapping into this power of asking.
Right, and not just asking in the traditional sense, but really understanding that every thought, every feeling,
Every desire
is like this energetic transmission.
Yes. And those transmissions, they have the power to shape our reality.
It's like we're broadcasting our desires into the world, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. And the more aware we become of what we're broadcasting, the more we can consciously create a reality that aligns with what we truly want.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around, but it's also incredibly exciting. This whole idea that we have more power than we realize to shape our lives.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today. But to our listeners, we want to leave you with this. What are you asking for? What kind of energy are you putting out into the world? And most importantly, what small shifts can you make today to better align your energy with the reality you desire? Until next time, keep diving deep and keep asking those amazing questions.